Hi, everybody. I am excited to be joined by the Tusculum University Associate Head Coach, Coach Vanessa. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So we're going to spend a few minutes and kind of talk about your recruiting process, and then more specifically your school, because I bet there's a lot of people out there who don't even know where Tusculum is.
Odds are good.
And then of course your team and how things are going there. But let's start on the recruiting side of things. So, if a recruit comes in, what's some of the first things you like to ask recruits during that first contact you have with them?
Especially if I'm talking to maybe that class, like for example, right now we're talking a lot to like those 23s moving forward. I always try to ask them where they are in their recruiting process, depending on what time of year it is. A lot of that will help us as coaches kind of figure out, are we early in the recruiting process? Are you late? Have you done a lot of college visits? And I think too, with asking that question, it kind of helps me gauge how comfortable they're going to be. A lot of times when I'm recruiting, I get kids, like I'm their first college phone call. And if I know that, I can kind of maybe help them be more comfortable and more relaxed and just kind of be like, this is just like a conversation with your friends versus, if maybe this is like their 10th call, we might have a little bit more flow versus me kind of helping them along in that conversation. So that's always a big thing I ask about.
Right. Well, that makes sense. So you said 23, so that would be current high school juniors.
Correct.
So obviously NCAA rules say you got to be a rising junior to be able to have the two-way conversations.
Correct.
So when do you find that you start getting kids reaching out, and when do you start looking at kids? Is it before that rising junior time frame, or is it around?
Yeah, we definitely we're probably right now majority looking at 23s. Now that being said, I'll definitely, if I'm at a tournament and let's say I have a gap in my schedule, I watch juniors all day, but I have 2 hours before I want to go to dinner, I'll definitely walk over to maybe a younger game. Normally it's probably more that year coming up, just because depending to where we are in that recruiting process. But that being said, I'm always looking for players. I've been at fields where I'm watching a game and I'm like, I've seen enough of that, and I just turn my head and I don't even know what age they are, but I'm like, you hear the parents cheering and you hear things going on. It kind of just pulls your direction over. So we're always probably looking at that next year's recruiting class, but I don't lock ourselves in when we're recruiting. If we find opportunities, I know I was out recruiting this fall and I saw 24 and 25. So, some girls like that, just some games I really enjoyed. I've had some 8th graders contact me and I'm like, I love their gumption. I know they're looking at colleges and everything, but it's obvious, like you said, I can't connect with them yet. So
that's my kid. We live 3 miles from the premier soccer complex in Bradenton. So all the big tournaments roll through. So we were at the ECNL event a couple weeks ago. And
I do like something that we can do is we can communicate on the behalf of camps. So right. I know when I get some of those younger players, I do put them kind of into a folder for a camp folder, be like, hey, they're already interested in us. I love players reaching out to us, and I'm more likely to send, hey, come to our camps and stuff, because that's something we can communicate when it gets into that summer range.
That's great. Great to know. So what are some of the, what are some of the questions you hear from prospects that you kind of give you pause, right? That you're just like, whoa, what
I think one of my favorite questions over the year, I had a player be like, so what is the nightlife like? And I'm just like, oh, that's probably one of those questions you want to ask the teammates, jokingly, but
right.
Or sometimes when some recruits come with questions. It's not even sure what the questions they do or don't ask. A lot of times when mom or dad are asking all the questions to me, that's a big red flag.
Yeah.
Because I want the recruit to end up in a place they want to be, not where mom and dad want them to be. And sometimes that doesn't always align. So a lot of times when we have like a recruit come in on a visit and they don't talk at all, mom or dad does all the talking, to me, that's a big red flag. Maybe not so much with the questions that the recruit's asking, but if mom and dad are kind of carrying the conversation. Obviously, we want the parents involved, and we want to make sure it's the right fit for everybody, on all levels, financially, academically, athletically. But I think for me, that's always a big red flag, because it's it gives me a kind of a little bit of a warning of what the future might look like.
Makes sense. So with that communication, what is the method of communication that you prefer? Do you prefer email, text, phone? What?
Probably starting off when I first talk to a recruit, it's going to be mostly through email. So a lot of it, they're going to give me an email. Now that being said, I always like to say I'm old school, which I just like to talk on the phone. I'm a coach. I love to talk. So I kind of try to match what the player's comfortable with. I have players that like to talk to me purely through texting. Phone calls are just not their thing. They're not comfortable on phone calls, so they prefer, surprise. They prefer to do texting. But when I'm first recruit a player, it's going to be a lot of emails back and forth. Once we kind of get into that process, maybe we're inviting them to come in for a visit. We're going to have a phone call once or twice before that. And then just kind of texting, the further we get into it, probably the more likely it's going to get kind of more mainstream with texting and more phone calls.
So how many inbound contacts do you think you get in a week, a month, a year from potential recruits?
During early on, we'll probably start off with getting somewhere like right now, I'm probably getting about 20 to 30 emails a day of recruits that are interested in Tusculum.
Wow.
Now, I don't believe all of those are actually 100% interested. It's that blanket email that we all send out and they're hoping for a response. And once they get a response from me, they're probably then going to follow up with a more serious email. For our probably more serious recruits, we're probably looking at 5 to 10 in a week.
So how would a recruit stand out from the generic blast email? Like what do you see as the difference between this person's actually interested versus this person's fishing?
That's kind of like the blanket email. I always something that really tells me it's a blanket email when I get like Coach Fyffe or Mr. Fyffe. I get that a lot, which it tells me they didn't even look at my website, our team's website. That's being found out that I'm a female coach. That's a big blanket email to me. But something that would show me that you're interested. I've had recruits be like, hey, I saw you played X team this past Wednesday. You guys won. Congratulations. It's kind of taking those extra steps. Like if you have a school you're really interested in, you should kind of be doing some research. So if I'm emailing a team during season, maybe say, hey, I saw you beat so-and-so. Congrats. Good luck on Saturday because that just shows me that it's not just them just sending an email. They've taken some time on their part to do a little research and be involved in our program. And with social media and stuff, it's not hard to look up on Instagram who are playing and all that. So,
Right. Now, what about when you're looking at players, obviously you can't go see every single player probably that contacts you. So when it comes to like video, are you getting highlights? Do you prefer full game tape? Like how do you look at video?
A lot of I like highlights just because like I said, we get so many emails a day, especially if you're somebody that I've not seen before. Send me highlights first. Send me short highlights. And when I talk about highlights, nothing drives me more crazy when you have a highlight video where it's like 5 feet around them. So like they make a pass and I have no idea if the pass was successful. I have no idea if they scored the goal.
Right.
It was a beautiful form on the shot, but I always have to tell parents when they're doing highlight video, we want to see the play. I want to see the player not just receive the ball. I want to see how she moves off the ball. After she passes it, did she move into space or did she stop running? Things like that. So a lot of times, sometimes I find with highlight videos, they zoom in real tight, but there's something to be said to show me the space, show me her soccer IQ within the video. Sometimes positionally it differs a little bit. A lot of times, like with goalkeepers, for example, you might get a little bit more gameplay because they don't have as much, or you might get less depending on the position. But highlights are probably the best way to kind of initially send a video. If I want more, I'm going to ask for more. So
makes sense. So is there like a set number of players that you try to bring in every year, or how does the numbers game, I guess, work for you guys?
Our numbers game, we're looking to always replace what we've graduated. So the number will flux.
Yeah.
So if I have if I'm graduating 5 seniors, at a minimum, I'm going to replace those seniors. And then depending on the year, I may go 1 or 2 more, depending on what our team's needs are. Did we have injuries? Did we have transfers? So it's a lot of kind of every year there's those internal team things happening. And that's really going to reflect the recruiting numbers I'm going to have for that next year.
And then for your school specifically, because you guys are NCAA Division II, right?
Yeah.
What percentage of of those players are getting some form of athletic money? What
Pretty much everyone on our team is getting some kind of percentage of athletic money. Now, that being said, they're going to get, we always start off with academics first, so they're definitely going to get an opportunity, get good grades, because that's where, I think for especially Division 2 and like Division 3, grades are so important. And it's important for Division 1 because the better your grades are, the more opportunity for academic money, and then we can add athletic to that afterwards.
So that was gonna be my next question. So so you guys, generally speaking, you're gonna try to see what kind of academic money they might get, and then work with the athletic side of things to help, get the best package for the kid.
Correct.
Without killing your budget, right?
Right. It's always a balancing act. We want to help. We want to bring in top talent, and we want to help all those, all of our players that we bring on and help them, carry that load also. So they're definitely going to look at those academic opportunities first. I always tell recruits, we have recruits that will take the SAT more than once because it can help them, obviously gain more academic opportunities. But when we're packaging, we're going to kind of see what the academic opportunity is, and then kind of go from there.
So when it comes to recruits, what is your, I guess, hierarchy of value, right? In terms of their ability, their athleticism, et cetera. What do you guys, what do you value the most as a coach?
For me, I think my number one thing when I'm looking at recruits is character. So when I'm watching a player, when I go watch a team, I like to show up for warm up. If let's say the girl, she starts the game, when her coach pulls her, how does she come to the bench? How does she address her coach? I'm looking for all those kind of little intricate things that will help with our team chemistry, will help with, the player adjusting to our team kind of philosophies and everything. Because I'm a true believer that not that athleticism and like talent's not important, but character can make a big difference. Because, sometimes with these players, they're coming into a program where they're coming from a program where they've been probably like a top player sometimes, and coming into a program where I'm recruiting all top players, some of that adversity can be hard. So I like to make sure that, their character, they have great character, that they're okay. If a girl loses a ball in the field, how does she respond? Does she just give up? Does she go after that ball? Is she kind of like, oh, it's over? Does she hang her head? Probably that's one of the first things. Work ethic and character are definitely probably the two top things I'm looking for. And then once we kind of check those, kind of see some of those things, we'll move on to like, what kind of speed do you have? Or what kind of ball skills do you have? How are you going to fit in a position that I need to fill?
Okay. So outside of the recruits that, everybody usually thinks of, right? You go to a tournament, you see a kid, you talk to them, they're graduating 23, all that stuff. What about transfers and walk-ons? How do those kind of fit into your school specifically?
Yeah, we definitely have open tournaments. We've had several walk-ons over the years. Sometimes we've had girls that just, for whatever reason, they relate into the recruiting process. So we are always welcome to have players come and walk on and give it a go. Sometimes they pan out, sometimes they don't. It's a lot about the player. I find a lot of times players come into a situation with certain expectations, and sometimes when those expectations aren't met, or they had a different idea of what college soccer would be like, maybe it's too much of a time commitment, or maybe it's not enough, or whatever level it is they want doesn't match up with the mindset they have. So we definitely have walk-ons come on. We've had transfers come over into the program over the years, but I would say with transfers, it's not as often. Just, I don't know if it's just kind of where we are located or kind of the division we're at, but we are open to all players.
Okay. Makes sense. All right. Well, let's let's dig into a little bit more about the school, since like we talked about most. Now, the Division 2 school I coached at was in southwestern Indiana, so we played some schools from Tennessee. So I knew where Tusculum was. But what would you say? What are the three things your school is most known for?
First and foremost, we're the oldest school in Tennessee. So our school was established in 1794. So we're definitely a very historic school. That being said, our campus, I love our campus. It's all that old brick, as you kind of can see in my picture behind me. It's all looks like that brick. All the buildings match. And it's a beautiful walking campus with really old trees and everything. So I think that's something really well known about our campus. The other thing about our campus that I think we're really known for is about helping first-time college students.
Hmm.
So those students that, mom and dad maybe didn't go to college, especially from like locally or regionally. So we're definitely a funnel for those kind of students looking to continue on to maybe somewhere where their parents haven't been. And then a third thing about our school is we're a civic arts school. So we're looking not just to make better students, but to make better people, and the experiences you get within the university are going to hopefully build on that and, grow the person that comes in. I always try to tell our players, you're going to leave 10 times better than you came in, with this whole experience. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, one of the again, purposes of this interview series is to help people learn stuff that they're not going to find just by clicking on your school's website, right?
Yeah.
So okay, those are three really great facts about the school. What are three things that are awesome about your school that most people wouldn't know or that you're not going to find on the website? What are the hidden gems about your school?
The hidden gems. Yeah. I think the number one thing that's something that you don't know unless you know is just the community at our university. I myself an alumni. I've been coaching here at Tusculum for several years. I played here actually, and did all of that. So our community here I put it up against any community. Our professors come out to games. Our student body is very motivated and supporting each other. We have a large student athlete population, but there's no way I walk across campus I'm not seeing a friendly face, so everyone knows each other. It's a nice tight-knit community. And like, if you need help, people are willing to help you. If you need something, I know, like, it's kind of funny. I see players all the time, not even mine, just walking across. I'm like, oh, hey, how's it going? Just the community on campus is just, I'd put it up against any community. I love it here. That's one of the big reasons why, even as a student, it attracted me to Tusculum. Is just that nice tight-knit community here at campus.
So you brought up the word support, and that kind of leads me to the next question. What types of support mechanisms does your school provide, whether that's on the athletic side of things in terms of strength and conditioning or nutrition, or on the academic side, tutoring, et cetera?
We do have like a strength and conditioning coaches that help our programs in the weight room and agility and stuff like that. We have, when it comes to academics, we have like a tutoring center. So, and that's free to all students. They can go there, they can get help with their classes. They can, they can actually tutor. It's all student tutors, which I think is really cool. So it's students tutoring students that maybe have already had the class, which I think gives some insight. So you're not just teaching what's in the book, but maybe you actually had that professor. So you can be like, hey, I had Professor Smith. She really focuses on the definitions versus just being like, here's the book,
Right.
So I think that's really, really unique. Our school does a really good job of just supporting our students for their mental health and their physical health. So we definitely have different avenues. If students have different needs, depending on where they are, what they're dealing with, that they can get help in all realms.
Which is great. And so with that, how specifically at your school do student athletes balance their studies and sport commitments?
Yeah. Most of our classes, we are kind of between that 8 and 3 window. We do have a few labs that will run into that 4 to 6, but for us, with like soccer in the fall, our practices are normally like 3 to 5 or 5 to 7, depending on if we're going first that day, because we share a complex with our men's team, which is really nice because like on practice days, we don't really conflict with class schedules at all. We make it, we as a program really focus, they're student athletes. So they're here to get a degree and they're here to play athletics. And that's kind of a bit of the hierarchy. But it's a balancing, like you said, and it's a matter of making sure that those kids aren't missing class when they don't have to. So we really try with our scheduling to work with that. Obviously, there's going to be game days where we have to drive, like on a Wednesday. We have to drive maybe to a further away game. So during the fall, a lot of our students take only morning classes. We don't require that, but they do that on their own. On Fridays, we normally just have labs. So that helps a lot for Saturday travel. So students aren't missing school class on Friday or anything, but it's really nice because with being such a smaller knit school and like kind of that tight knit community, our professors do a great job of working with our student athletes. As long as our athletes are communicating with their professors, they'll do what they can to help each other out. We're looking for them to be successful on the field, in the classroom, and outside as a person. So our schedule overall works really well with our academics, and I think our academics do a great job of working with our athletes.
That's great. You mentioned travel. How much does your school tend to travel, and how does that factor in?
Yeah, in our conference, our games are on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So most of our Wednesday games are they try to keep in our conference those Wednesday games closer, so probably like a 2 to 3 hour window. Some of our Saturday games, I think our furthest game away is like 5 hours, so that's going to be like an overnight most likely. We normally have 1, maybe 2 overnights in a season, just depending on how our schedule, if we're home or away more often. But we do travel. When we travel as a team, we travel on a bus normally. So the players, they go to the locker room, they grab their stuff, they get on the bus. A lot of them do their homework. We have the Wi-Fi coach buses, so they do a lot of that in motion and everything. So it's nice because it's kind of like they get that balance of a lot of the away travels on the weekends. So that way they don't have to worry about class and everything.
That's good. So what would a typical non-game day look like during the season versus a game day?
Yeah. They probably have 1 or 2 classes on a day, depending on how they've designed their schedule with their advisor. That maybe they'll have like a lot of, like, for example, one of my players has a class from like 8 to 10 and then 10 to noon, and then she's done from noon to 3. We would have practice at like 3 to 5. And then sometimes we would have video on certain days of the week, and other days they might have weights, just kind of depending on the days of the week. But it's kind of like we try to have class time and then kind of soccer time. And then we might have some team bonding or team video time, depending on the day of the week.
Okay. Now let's talk more specifically about your team, right? And that kind of thing. So if I was an incoming freshman, should I expect any playing time? Do you guys do a reserve team? That kind of thing?
So we're very much a kind of competition breeds better play kind of program. If you can help us, you're going to play. That's what it comes down to, and playing time is earned. So, for example, we had several freshmen starting in our defensive line this year for playing 80 to 90 minutes, and it's just because they were the best thing for our team at that time. So, class status doesn't affect your playing time. Your effort affects your playing time and your attitude. So that's a big part of it. That's always a really good question for recruits to ask about, having freshmen, do they get playing time? We do within our program. If you went onto our website, we do have a larger roster. So that being said, we do carry a reserve team to give them opportunities to develop and get a chance to get some playing time that maybe they wouldn't get because they're just not prepared yet for that level from a club to high school to college. So we do have a reserve team that does play a several game schedule during the season. So that way they can have an opportunity to play other college reserve teams also.
That's cool. So how many do you try to carry on your main roster or total roster?
It depends on travel and things like that. On average, our roster size is probably going to be varying between 24 and 28 for our first team.
And then would all of those travel to an away game or just a certain set? They all would. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. What about staff? How big is your soccer staff, and what roles do each of you guys play?
Yeah. So we have our head coach, myself. We have a graduate assistant, and then from some years we have a volunteer assistant, some years we don't. So normally we consistently have 3 on staff. Some years we have 4. I would say obviously our head coach, he predominantly is focusing on our first team. I, as the associate head, kind of float between both teams. And then our GA is kind of the assistant coach with our reserve team.
Okay. How would you describe, you specifically and the head coach, but your coaching staff's style of coaching as well as your team style of play? How would you describe that?
Yeah, I think my players would probably describe it as honest and optimistic. I'm very much a straight at it kind of coach. It's just who I am. I'm not much for sugarcoating. As a player, I appreciated the coaches that were very, not to say blunt, but just honest with me. I think it's easier to deal with kind of criticism or, critiquing. That being said, I try to, as a coach, anytime I'm coaching my players and, I'm saying, hey, you need to do this, I don't just tell them what they're doing wrong. I tell them why we need to do it better. So hopefully kind of putting those 2 things together helps them mentally kind of come over that hurdle. When I'm coaching, I'm a very energetic kind of bubbler. You see, I talk with my hands a lot and I talk fast. So that's just kind of this is who I am all the time.
All right.
Yeah, it's just who I am. So that being said, when we go to practice, especially if I'm running a session, I don't necessarily put like time limits on sessions. Obviously, we have a window that we got to get practice in and out of, but if I have a drill set up, we're going to stay on that drill until we succeed. Now, success can be defined different ways on different drills. I can make adjustments. Maybe the drill's too small, so make it a little bit bigger so they can find success. But we're going to come out. I kind of always tell our players, the soccer field is our sanctuary. So you're going to come out. You're going to respect the sanctuary. You're going to respect the field. Let's get business. Let's do business. But we're going to have some fun along the way. So, if you're not enjoying what we're doing, then it's not, there's nobody wants to be on the field and being grumpy and not enjoying it. So we try to make it fun. We try to have aspects of competition and everything. I always think it's more fun when you're competing against your teammate, whether it's relays, whether it's, playing 11 aside, whatever it is, putting those competitive elements in it, I think also help it kind of elevate it too.
What about style of play in terms of regular gameplay? How would you characterize your style of play?
I would definitely say style of play. We are a very direct kind of team. We're looking to move the ball forward. I always tell our teams we want to minimize collateral damage. So as much as possible, we're trying to play in the other team's half. Depending on who our team is that year, as a staff, we're not locked into we're only going to play X formation. So I'm going to use the tools in my tool belt. So if I have more midfielders, I might play a heavy midfielded formation. Maybe I have more stronger strikers this next year. So maybe I'll play a more front kind of loaded formation. But no matter what formation we play, when it comes to style, we're going very direct, trying to get the ball to goal.
Cool. So, it's January. I'll be at the last day of January. So you're in off season.
I can't believe it's already the end of January.
Tell me about it. So what does your off season program look like?
Yeah, we the girls have been here for about a week. So right now we're running practice kind of like mini hour sessions with our team twice a week. They're lifting twice a week. We have conditioning twice a week. So they're pretty much going the full hours. During this time of year, we can normally we're allowed to have 8 hours before we declare our spring season. So we're definitely utilizing probably about 7 of those 8. Okay. So they pretty much have something going on every day except for the 2 days that they're off.
All right, that's good for them. Yeah. So
it's really sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's really important for us because the way we kind of look at it is, we're trying to set the foundation for fall. So as much time as we can get with them now, it'll help them, because we got to set the foundation now, because unfortunately, and as you probably know, that's coaching college soccer, they go home over the summer and you're like, that's that most important time. So we try to get them as ready as possible now. So when they go home, if they stutter a little bit or, if they maybe get a little distracted, it won't hurt as much when we come back.
I hear you. Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been awesome. We've been talking almost a half hour, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but what else, is out there that you would like any potential prospects out there to know about your program, your school, or anything? Just kind of free flow.
I guess just kind of, I know I always talk to the recruits, we as soccer coaches, we talk to recruits all the time. So I always like to tell recruits, when you contact us, it's something that we're used to. So don't worry about being like awkward. Like I know for them a lot of times, especially if they're just starting the recruiting process, it can be scary for them because I know it feels like they are making a very big decision. But I always try to tell them, at the end of the day, just call us. We're coaches are humans too. It's kind of, sometimes I think they get this thought in their head that, oh gosh, I'm tired of these college coaches. I don't know if I'm ready for that, but we love to talk soccer, just like mom and dad, just like your friends and your teammates do. So definitely when you're reaching out, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid just to have a conversation with us. And I guess the other thing, not necessarily about Tusculum, but just about the recruiting process is, just be open. I truly believe as a college coach that there's a program out there for everybody, whether it's my program, another program, a different division, but don't get caught up on kind of the tunnel vision. I think sometimes happens with recruits, especially they get very focused on like one thing and they miss out on opportunities that are maybe available to them. So definitely when you're first starting off that search as a recruit, be open to everything. And then as you get further down the line, get, closer to signing, obviously you're going to kind of funnel that into smaller, maybe as like a, more niche thing. But in the beginning, I'd say, look at all divisions, look at all levels and be honest with yourself. I think hopefully your club coach and the coaches that you've had can be honest with you and kind of help evaluate you where you think you might have great potential, and figuring out finally kind of what kind of college experience do you want? I've had players that are totally fine that have come into our program. They're totally fine playing just for the reserve team. Like that's kind of the commitment they could make with everything else going on. But I've had other players that aren't even happy on the bench. They want to be on the field. So when you go through that recruiting process before you kind of go start talking to coaches and making visits, kind of maybe have an idea of, when you think of your college experience, what do you see it as? Do you want to be on the field? Do you want to be a supporting player? Are you okay with just sitting on the bench? And different players have different needs. So I think just kind of being open with yourself and having those conversations, maybe your friends, your parents, to kind of give yourself an idea of what you want will definitely help you hopefully find the place where you're going to be for 4 years, which we try to do. I think it's so important.
Awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time, Coach, and wish you
Thanks for
guys
having me.
the best of luck in the fall season and in all your spring endeavors. And hopefully, this summer we tend to drive north to see family and things. We make our way through Tennessee. We'll have to stop by and check it out. Awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate the time, and hopefully we'll see each other in person sometime.
Yeah. Have a great. Thank you for having me. It was a good time.
Awesome. Thanks.